That night, the woman slept on the couch in the corner. Jeff curled up on the floor, trying to sleep, but he couldn't shake off a feeling that something was wrong. Every time he looked at the woman, it was like looking into a bottomless pit. As dawn broke, Jeff got up, wanting to get away from the creepy woman. He went out into the yard. The woman stopped eating and asked, "Are you leaving?" Startled by her sudden movement, Jeff froze. It was obvious the woman wasn't as ordinary as she seemed. Was she some kind of monster who lured people to her house in the middle of nowhere? Why had she invited him in? What was she trying to do? Jeff knew he had to escape before she did something to him. He looked around, desperate to find a way out. Suddenly, he noticed something weird. There was a hole dug out in the ground near the house, covered with leaves and branches. The hole was small, but Jeff felt he had no other option. So he squeezed into it. Inside, it was pitch black, but Jeff could sense that it was a tunnel leading away from the house. Leaving the creepy woman behind, he crept further into the darkness. The tunnel was narrow, forcing Jeff to move on all fours. Suddenly, he felt something slimy and wet under his hand. Groping in the dark, he pulled out a rotten piece of meat. It smelled foul. Panic surged through Jeff. Was this some kind of trap laid out by the monster? Had she fed him this disgusting stuff? Was he now being hunted? Adrenaline pumping, he crawled faster. Then he heard a strange sound, like a beast shifting. Something big was moving closer, sniffing the air. Jeff closed his eyes tight, hoping he wouldn't be caught. Whatever it was, it stopped near him, but it didn't attack. Jeff waited with bated breath. When he heard footsteps approaching, he realized it wasn't the monster. Someone was coming towards him. "Hello?" a voice said. "Can you hear me? Are you okay?" The voice belonged to a young woman. "Help me!" Jeff cried out, relieved to find another human being. "I'm stuck here." The woman crawled closer and helped him out of the tunnel. Jeff stumbled out into the sunlight feeling weak and shaky. He turned to thank the woman, but she had disappeared. Jeff found himself back in the forest. Looking around, he realized he had no idea where he was or how to get back. He was completely lost. Suddenly, he heard a loud cackle. "Well, well, well, you're quite the persistent one, aren't you?" The woman from the house stood before him, smiling wickedly. "You can't escape your fate. You're mine now," she said, lunging toward him. Terrified, Jeff ran deeper into the woods, hiding among the trees. He dared not stop to catch his breath. Every time he looked back, the woman was closer, her face twisted with a terrifying smile. The next morning, the woman was still fast asleep. Jeff, unable to wake her, left some money on the table and slipped out the door. He had to get out of there before she woke up. He walked slowly along the edge of the gorge, hoping to find a way up. There, at the bottom, the chain ladder was still hanging. It was still attached to the wall, but only half of it remained. It was impossible to climb. Jeff felt a lump forming in his throat. All this time, he hadn't realized how deep the gorge was. Despair threatened to engulf him. He had to get out. But how? Suddenly, an idea struck. Why not climb up the rock with the ladder? But when he got closer, he saw that it was sheer rock. There were no handholds or footholds. Jeff ran his fingers over the cold, rough surface. Nothing. Hopeless. Heaving a heavy sigh, he turned and slowly made his way back. He didn't want the woman to see him like this, defeated, even though he was sure she wouldn't wake up. He wasn't afraid of her. She seemed harmless. Still, something about her calm, serene face worried him. When he got back to the house, the woman was still asleep. Jeff stood there watching her. For a while, he didn't know what to do. Out of boredom, he took out his camera and started clicking pictures of everything around him. He couldn't go home without knowing what was going on here. Who was this woman? What was this place? Through the viewfinder, Jeff saw a drawing on the wall. He moved closer. It was a crude drawing of a man being devoured by a monster. The monster had sharp teeth and claws. Its eyes gleamed menacingly, and its tongue lolled out playfully from the corner. As Jeff watched, another figure emerged from behind the monster. Was that the woman? Her hands were raised as if in surrender. Around the edges of the room were more drawings, each depicting a different horror. Jeff felt a chill crawl up his spine. Then he noticed something else. In the far corner of the room was a massive cage made of thick iron bars. It was bolted to the floor. On top of it was a large wooden block. Jeff clicked his camera shutter. Beside the block lay a human skull, picked clean of flesh. Around the skull were animal bones, but Jeff couldn't tell what kind. The rest of the room was a horrifying mess. Jeff moved to the other side of the room. His flashlight beam fell on a stone platform. Etched into its surface was a goat's head. Its eyes were wide with terror, its mouth open in a silent scream. Jeff shuddered. Could this be a sacrificial altar? Had the woman made these drawings? But why? And where was the cage for? As if awakened by his thoughts, the woman suddenly sat up. Startled, Jeff quickly turned off his flashlight and hid behind a pillar. The woman yawned and got up. She was tall and slender with long, flowing hair. She walked toward the kitchen. Jeff watched her. She moved gracefully, almost like a dancer. Jeff followed her with his camera. The woman busied herself with chores, humming a tuneless song. Jeff, hiding behind the pillar, clicked his camera. The woman stopped, her back to him. She was humming now, a soft, sweet melody. Slowly, she turned around. A smile touched her lips, and for the first time, Jeff saw her eyes. They shone with an unearthly light. Jeff gasped. "You're awake," the woman said softly. "I thought you'd sleep longer." "I couldn't," Jeff replied, his voice hoarse from disuse. "What's your name?" The woman hesitated. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I want to know who I'm talking to. I want to know if you're dangerous." The woman burst out laughing. "Dangerous? Why do you think I'm dangerous?" "These drawings, this cage, the skull," Jeff gestured helplessly. "Oh, those." The woman waved her hand dismissively. "They're just stories. Fairy tales." "Fairy tales," Jeff echoed, his mind refusing to believe her. The woman went back to her work, leaving Jeff with his questions. He decided to try again. "Can I get out of here?" The woman shook her head. "No, you can't." "Why not?" "Because I won't let you." Jeff wanted to protest, but the woman cut him off. "Don't bother arguing. You can't leave." Her words hit Jeff like a physical blow. He wanted to scream, to thrash about, but he knew it would be pointless. The woman was stronger than he was. "Why are you doing this?" he asked finally. The woman paused, her back still to Jeff. "Because you're mine now." She turned slowly, a strange light in her eyes. Jeff stared back, his heart pounding. One day, while standing near the chain ladder, Jeff swore to himself that he would get out no matter what. Just then, two boys appeared at the top of the gorge. Jeff waved frantically. "Help me!" he shouted. "Please help me!" "We don't have a rope," one of the boys said, "but we'll bring one." And sure enough, after a while, a rope was lowered down. Jeff's heart soared. He tied himself to it carefully and began to climb. A smile of relief spread across his face. But something about the boys' eyes above unsettled him. Their gaze gleamed with something sinister. Before Jeff could reach halfway, the boys vanished. He hung there in midair. He tried climbing with his own strength, but the blazing desert sun drained him. Suddenly, a warm liquid splashed down on him. Startled, he looked up. One of the boys was urinating on him. Shame burned through Jeff. The boys laughed and swung the rope, turning his climb into a cruel game. And then Jeff realized the awful truth. The very first boy he had met in the desert was one of them. This was no coincidence. It was a group. A family, perhaps, who lured wanderers here to torment them. When the rope finally snapped, the boys stopped shaking it. Jeff's head slammed against a rock and he blacked out. When his eyes opened again, it was night. Even in his broken state, he hadn't given up. He still wanted to escape this place. His body was exhausted, trembling with weakness, when suddenly the same woman appeared. She dressed his wounds gently, sighed, and said with sadness, "Why are you struggling so hard? Save a little strength?" Jeff quickly asked, "Who are those boys?" The woman replied, "Just some children wandering the desert." She warned him that if he didn't stay calm, his suffering would only grow worse. Jeff felt something inside him shatter. He tilted his head back toward the sky and screamed. At that very moment, the boys appeared again at the edge of the pit, staring down at him with fiery eyes. A month passed. It seemed as if Jeff had accepted his fate. He lived most of the time with the woman inside the pit. One day, she noticed the sleeve of his shirt had torn. From her cupboard, she brought out a pile of old clothes, and said softly, "Take whatever you want to wear." The thought echoed in Jeff's mind. Where did these clothes come from? But without asking further, he slipped one on. By now, he had even started trying to grow vegetables in the barren soil. Often, the boys above tossed down food and supplies, and Jeff silently accepted them, as though this had become his new life. One night, Jeff asked the woman, "Do you never think of leaving this place?" The woman's voice was low, almost resigned. "This is everything. This is all there is." Jeff couldn't understand her words. That night, both of them drank heavily. Suddenly, strange noises echoed from outside. Alarmed, Jeff grabbed an axe and staggered outside. The sight froze his blood. The children, painted in grotesque makeup, were running wildly, laughing like lunatics. Within moments, they fell upon him, dragged him to the ground, and mocked him mercilessly. Their laughter, shrill and unhinged, tore through his soul. Broken, Jeff stumbled back inside and confronted the woman. "What is this? Who are these children? Why did you trap me here?" The woman only whispered, "There is nothing evil here. I only want the two of us to spend our lives here together." That night, loneliness and alcohol brought them closer. In the morning, Jeff awoke with the woman sleeping beside him. Stepping outside, he saw piles of bottle caps stacked near a post, hundreds of them, proof that many before him had come here and never left. Time passed. The vegetables Jeff planted began sprouting fresh green leaves. One day, a boy approached him and asked, "How did you grow these?" Jeff looked at the boy, then at the endless expanse of the desert surrounding them, and replied, "There are two ways to live. One is to keep moving, always searching for something better, but never finding it. The other is to stop, accept what you have, and make the best of it. That's how I grew these." The boy pondered this for a moment, then turned and walked away. The dying embers in the fire pit were beginning to look like glowing embers in the dark, and Jeff shivered, pulling his thin blanket tighter around himself. It had been 5 long months since he'd woken up in this godforsaken pit. 5 months of despair, hunger, and loneliness. Jeff was close to giving up hope when something incredible happened. For the first time in ages, Jeff felt a spark of hope. The boy had brought back some corn seeds, and together they planted them in the soft mud by the water's edge. Every morning, the boy would check on the crops and enthusiastically tell Jeff about their progress. In return, Jeff promised to teach the boy how to read and write. The boy beamed, then ran off to tell his mother. Soon enough, the boy returned with 2 mugs of cold lemonade. Jeff stared at the drink in disbelief. The boy grinned, then took the mug back. Jeff watched as the boy sat down beside the fire, carefully avoiding the flames, and sipped from the mug. Jeff couldn't remember the last time he'd felt such a surge of happiness. Maybe it was the lemonade, or maybe it was the boy's carefree attitude that made him feel so hopeful. But Jeff found himself smiling back at the boy. It was a weak attempt at a smile, but to Jeff it felt like he was splitting from ear to ear. One night, Jeff pulled the woman aside. They sat in silence for a while before Jeff started talking about the twinkling lights of the city. He spoke about the joy of driving his old pickup truck with the windows rolled down, feeling the wind blow through his hair. Jeff even showed the woman old photographs of his family and friends. For a moment, he saw a flicker of emotion cross her face, but the next morning, Jeff woke up to the woman's blood-curdling scream. Jeff jumped up and ran outside. What he saw there made him freeze in his tracks. Hanging dead in the middle of the pit was the boy, his lifeless eyes staring blankly into the sky. The woman collapsed to the ground beside him, weeping uncontrollably. Jeff rushed to the woman, helping her to sit down. Gently, he tried to get her to talk, to explain what had happened, but she only shook her head, her cries growing louder. Suddenly, everything clicked into place for Jeff. These children had been born in this pit. They had grown up here. This was their home. All of this time, Jeff had been nothing but a pawn in their sick game. He remembered the axe. That had been his opportunity to escape, to save himself. But in a moment of weakness, he had thrown it away. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. These kids weren't innocent. They had trapped him here, kept him alive so he could father a child that would carry on their bloodline. Jeff remembered the old men's clothes in the cupboard and the bottle caps near the door. He wasn't the first person they'd brought here. A surge of anger coursed through him, quickly followed by a wave of nausea. 5 months later, Jeff sat locked in an iron cage. His once strong body was now emaciated. His eyes were hollow, reflecting the emptiness within. His mind had long given up, leaving only a shell of the man he once was. One day, a young girl climbed down into the pit. She cautiously approached Jeff, her eyes filled with pity. "I'm gonna help you," she said softly, reaching out to touch his arm. Jeff flinched, then looked up at her. "I'll bring the police," she promised, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. It was the first time in what felt like an eternity that Jeff had felt a true spark of hope. But it didn't last long. As the girl turned to leave, a group of boys emerged from the shadows. They grabbed her, their faces twisted with malice. "She shouldn't be down here," one of the boys said, his voice dripping with disdain. Before Jeff could even react, the boys had dragged the girl to the edge of the pit. With a sickening crack, they snapped her neck. Her lifeless eyes stared vacantly into the abyss. Jeff's heart, already broken, shattered completely. That night, the woman entered Jeff's cell carrying a cup. He looked up at her, his gaze pleading. "Please," he whispered, "I'll do whatever you want. Just let me out of here." The woman ignored him, her face hardening. "You were only ever a vessel. Our family has never depended on an outsider. You were kept alive only until the child was born, because tradition says the father must live until that moment." Suddenly, the woman doubled over in pain. She cried out, her voice echoing in the darkness. "Help me," she begged. "Please, I need your help." Against all odds, Jeff found himself rushing to her aid. Minutes later, a baby girl was born. For a brief, precious instant, everything went silent, the sound of the child's cry ringing out in the darkness. The woman looked down at her newborn, a tired but satisfied smile gracing her lips. "She will carry on my bloodline. Our tribe will never die." Jeff stared at the baby, momentarily forgetting his own torment. The woman cradled her daughter close, her gaze meeting Jeff's. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving me my daughter, for giving our tribe its future." Jeff managed a weak smile in response. As darkness fell once again, claiming Jeff's consciousness, he knew he had played his part. They ended his life without hesitation. Jeff had been nothing more than a tool, used and discarded. Now his fate was sealed forever in this pit, buried beneath the soil where a new life had begun.